we talked about the fight at length on Friday. In fact, we talked about it all week long, and then it happened. If you thought Colby Covington was annoying and insufferable or worse before Saturday night, you are in for a few really, really rough months, and probably years. Because after he dominated my guy Jorge Masvidal, there is no way in hell this guy's going to stop talking now. Not now and probably not ever. The build-up to Covington Masvidal at UFC 272 was pretty much unlike anything ever before. You know, a lot of times you have guys hyping fights, guys making up a feud. Maybe they don't like each other. Maybe they really lean into it. But that's not what this was about. These guys did not manufacture anything. These guys did not have any of this contrived. This was an actual blood feud. These were two guys who really did hate each other. Really did. That's why we kept hearing about things like Matt Herpes, Masvidal talking about Covington leaving the arena for a hospital, you know, things like that. And then we get the fight itself. Now, I know I always say that nothing ever lives up to the hype, but trust me, when you have all that talk leading up to that fight, there was no way it was going to live up to the hype. Nothing could, unless jaws were getting shattered, unless guys were going straight to the hospital or to the morgue. Anything short of that, and it was going to be anticlimactic. And so Covington's unanimous decision pretty much had that feel. He dominated the fight start to finish. He never let Gamebred get any space whatsoever. He never let Masvidal be Masvidal. So whether we want to or not, we have to talk about Covington. Now, I know Colby Covington is not for everybody. In fact, he might not be for anybody at all. Colby Covington might only be for Colby Covington. It takes a special level of a-hole for the boss to come right out and say he's an a-hole. And that's not just Dana saying that Colby is an a-hole. That's Dana saying that he thinks that Covington is an a-hole, and so does everybody else, including Covington himself. But if we're all being honest, we have to all own the fact that that a-hole can fight. That is the only conclusion that you can come to after Saturday night. And unless the guy he's fighting is Kamaru Usman, not only can this guy fight, he can and will win. He's gone nearly 6.5 years without losing to anybody not named Usman. So you can say that his whole rap is just an act, something he does just to make a name for himself and sell fights, and that he assumed that role as a heel. You can say it's awful. You could say it's corny as hell. You could say it's dumb as hell. You could say it's cringy as hell. It's probably all true. Just know it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets any better, especially after Saturday night. I mean, do you really think this guy is going to dial it down after beating a guy he hates that much? Hell no, he's not. The thing is, it actually does work for him because that act, if it is an act, does not stop people from buying his fights. Some people actually do like this guy and his act. And plenty more probably wanted to see his allegedly herped up face get broken. In fact, I know people did. I know for a fact people bought that pay-per-view hoping to see his herped up face allegedly get more herped up and broken. See, the fact is, there were a ton of people that love Masvidal, that were rooting for Masvidal. I'm one of them. I'll own it. And then you got a number of people who really don't care that much about Gamebred, but were just there rooting for Covington to get a ride in an ambulance to the hospital when it was over. But that was never going to happen. And look, I make no secret of this. I'm paid not to root. I root for content, and nobody does content like Jorge Masvidal. He's one of the most compelling, fascinating guys to talk to in any sport. But Covington did exactly what you would expect a heavy favorite to do. Yes, I was rooting for Masvidal. Yes, I said as much Friday on this program. But no, I was not surprised by the outcome. Like I said Friday, Covington might not be a good dude, but he's a great fighter. I said I never root, but I'm rooting for Gamebred because he's one of my favorite dudes. But I also said the guy's definitely in deep with this guy, and he was. He was a big underdog, and he got beat. I bet him to win. If it's anybody other than Jorge Masvidal, I would never bet the underdog in that case. But I love the guy, and I bet him with my heart. But I'm also not stupid. I went in with my eyes wide open, and I went in knowing how dangerous the opposition was, and he showed it. And the fact is, nobody's more disappointed than Masvidal. Like, as an example, I know Drake lost 275 GER on that fight. But Masvidal himself probably would have happily paid double out of his own pocket to beat the crap out of Colby and get the win. It just didn't happen. Masvidal said before that fight that Covington was, quote, going to sniff my crotch all night long, end quote. And he was right. Covington took Masvidal down time and time again, 6 times in 5 rounds. So if, quote, sniff my crotch all night long is code for wrestling, there was a lot of crotch sniffing going on. And unfortunately, Masvidal was helpless to stop the crotch sniffing. And that's why there's only one Jorge Masvidal. Even in defeat, he can drop a great line like that, but he's right. Covington can wrestle. The thing is, he didn't just win with his wrestling. He also hit Masvidal quite a bit. In fact, he landed more than twice as many strikes as Masvidal. So while you're so concerned about this guy getting the fight to the ground and taking you down, he's punching you in the face. This is what makes this guy so good. And if you hated him and his act before that fight, like I said, good luck with that, because it's going to get a hell of a lot worse before it gets any better. In fact, based on what he was saying after the fight, it's never going to get better. Covington's not going away anytime soon, and he's only going to get louder. This is what you'd expect, right? And by the way, I've seen the early odds on a possible fight between he and Poirier, and I love Dustin. We don't need that fight. I've seen the odds already. He's an even bigger. Covington is an even bigger favorite in that fight than he was Saturday night, and Saturday night was not competitive, so we really don't need to see that fight. I know he wants that fight. I can't imagine Dana White is that enthused about that fight, or anybody else for that matter. And then once he got off of those two, he then turned his sights to Drake. That's almost kind of funny. Drake, you suck at sports betting. Go back to your bleeping little albums. You suck at sports betting. Go back to your crappy little albums and rapping. You need to sell more of your crappy little albums to get your money back that you lost on me. So, this guy's going in on Poirier, Drake, Masvidal's ex-wife. Did he go after anybody else? Is there anybody else that I missed? Of course he was not going to change coming out of that fight. And neither was my guy, Jorge. Jorge was upset. You could tell he was really disappointed in the way that went. And you might even argue that when he's saying, if I see this guy in the street, he talked about my kids, he talked about my ex-wife. If I see this guy in the street, I'm still going to do everything I can to break his bleeping jaw. And the thing is, many of you would say, really? You had your chance? You had 5 rounds? But Jorge's from the streets. I think you would. So the fact is, you can gloss him Trollby, you can call him cringy, and you may even be right. Just don't say this guy can't fight, because he can. The question is, who, not named Usman, is left? Now you ask me, I already told you, he called out Dustin. We've already seen the early odds on that fight, meaning we don't want to see that fight. To me, here's the one I'd pay money for. Well, hell, I pay money for all of them. But here's the one I'd pay Big Jack for. And I'm not sure that it makes sense yet, but it's already got my attention. Covington versus the winner of Burns-Chimaev. That's something I want to see. In the meantime, be prepared for Covington to continue to give the rest of us the cauliflower ear and make our ears bleed. Because that's not going to change anytime soon. This guy is not going to stop talking or being cringy or spewing all of that. That's something you can't take to the bank.